This week's parsha is Parshas Matos Masai, and in Parshas Masai there is a very interesting parsha describing how there were 48 cities that the Leviim lived in. 6 of those 48 cities were called Arei Miklat. These were cities of refuge, that if a person killed somebody b'shogeg, if he killed somebody unintentionally, the person who murdered would flee to this city of refuge, and there were 6 cities that were earmarked for this purpose. But these 6 cities, in addition to being cities of Miklat, they were actually cities that the Leviim lived in. The question is asked by the Shemi Shmuel, a great Hasidic Rabbi, why do the cities of refuge need be also cities of the Leviim? Why can't the Leviim have their own cities and let the people who murdered others live in a city alone without Leviim? Why do they need to live in the Arei HaLeviim? And he quotes from his father a beautiful thought, and that is that when a person murders somebody, even b'shogeg, even unintentionally, his life is different. He loses a certain spark to life that he had before, because although he did it in an unintentional way, but the mere fact that he took away somebody else's life caused his own life to be diminished and to lack a certain vitality. I happen to know somebody who unfortunately was driving a car and he killed a child, but it was not his fault. A little child was running out between 2 cars on the street, and he accidentally killed him. And even though it was an accident, the rest of his life, until the day he died, he was a different person. He was completely a changed man. He wasn't able to feel a full sense of life because he took away someone else's. So the Shemi Shmuel's father says that the place that the murderer has to go to is only a place where the Leviim live. Because what we know about the Leviim is the Leviim specialized in one thing in the Beis HaMikdash, which spilled over to their daily life as well, and that is that the Leviim sang Shira. They sang beautiful songs in the Beis HaMikdash with, at the time of the slaughtering of the sacrifices, the Leviim were in charge of singing. They had musical instruments, and they sang beautiful songs to Hashem. These songs that were so a part of the life of the Levi was the Ruach, the spirit that permeated the cities in which they lived. And so in order to facilitate the restoration of the happiness of the murderers, the people that killed somebody accidentally, they had to go to specifically the cities of the Leviim. These were cities which were full of music, full of love, full of joy. And in this specific place, that's where the Leviim were able to imbue in these people who were lacking life. They imbued in them a renewed vitality, a renewed love of life through the song and through the simcha that they experienced in this place. Reb Chaim of Sanz, the Divrei Chaim, used to say that when the Leviim would sing Shira in the Beis HaMikdash, what was happening was as follows. The Kayin, the priest who would be slaughtering the sacrifice on behalf of the sinner, would tell the sinner different words of Musar. He would tell them very severe words in order to allow them to do tshuva, to be inspired. And very often these people would begin to break down and cry because they felt so bad about the sins that they did. And when that happened, the Kayin would sort of be merames. He would symbolize, he would signal to the Leviim to strike up a happy song. And when the song came out of the mouths and the instruments of the Leviim, that would bring a renewed sense of life to the sinner, to the person who was lacking that happiness. That's the job of the Levi. The Levi's job is to bring happiness into everyone's life, into the sinner's life, into the person who accidentally took somebody else's life. That was the purpose of the Levium, and that's why the Arei Miklat was really also the Arei HaLeviim, because the only place to really have a place of Miklat, to have a place of absorption and security, is a place of happiness that the Levium live in. Nowadays, we all need a place of Miklat. Every one of us is exposed to a society around us which leaves us with confusion, with sadness. It promises something to us and then it doesn't really fulfill that promise. We're running after technologies that promise us happiness and luxury, and they don't fulfill that promise. We run after all different types of desires and materialism, and none of them really give us the happiness that we so seek. And so we all need a place of miklat. We need one of these cities that we can come and find an escape from the different people that are chasing after us, like the people who murdered were being chased by the relatives of the murdered, of the victim. That's how we also are victims that are trying to seek out a place of refuge, a place that we could find happiness. And the only place I believe that we really have that today, the Arei Miklat of today, besides for the shuls and the yeshivot, is really the Jewish home. The Jewish home is a place that has to have happiness. If there are people that are exposed to the outdoors and then they come home and they have more of the same, then they won't have any place to really feel secure and sheltered and warm. The Jewish home must be the place of the klita, the absorption, where we could feel safe and secure, but most important is the happiness, the feeling that we are in an Arei HaLeviim. We have to be able, when we come home, to have a spirit in the house of happiness, of security, of music, of just pure joy. And if we would have that atmosphere in our home, then we would all be able to have a restored and renewed faith in Hashem, in the Torah, in mitzvot, because the fact that we have so many children that are at risk, as they call them, people that are, it's because they're not happy. They don't have a place that they feel the joy that they so desperately seek. They don't have it outside, and they come home and they have more of the same inside, and so they feel that they don't have what they need. What we learned from this week's parasha is that every single person needs a place of refuge if they should require it, and today we all require it, and that the place of refuge is none other than a city of the Levium, a city which is full of song, of joy, of pure tahara, pureness, a place that's sacred, a place that if there's one place in the world that we know that we're safe and secure, it's a place that the Levium live in. That means it's a place where we have the purity of the Torah, the purity of mitzvot, the purity of service to Hashem, and we have the song, the joy that has to accompany the service of the Levium. If I might suggest one thing that we could take this Shabbos to heart from this parsha and from this message, it's that we do have the song of the Levium every single Shabbat, and that is with the Zmirot Shabbat. There are many beautiful Zmirot that we have, Zmirot which were composed by the greatest of rabbis, and they are imbued with Ruach HaKodesh. They were written by divine inspiration, and there are beautiful songs that we have to sing these Zmirot to, and these are ways, these are vehicles, these Zmirot, to allow us to really climb higher and more deeply into the essence of Shabbos. There's a story that's told about a great Rosh Yeshiva who had a child, he had a son, and everybody expected this son to also be a great rabbi, a great Rosh Yeshiva himself, but he wasn't. He did not turn out the way that everybody, including his father, expected him to. Yet this great Rosh Yeshiva had a next-door neighbor who was not as great a rabbi as this Rosh Yeshiva was, but yet all of his sons, one after the other, became these amazing Talmid Chachamim, these amazing rabbis, these people who everybody was, seeking their advice and their wisdom. And somebody asked this Rosh Yeshiva, why is it that you, who are such a great rabbi, your son did not turn out the way you did? Whereas this neighbor who is not such a great rabbi as you, he has amazing sons, one after another. They are Gedolim in their own right. And this Rosh Yeshiva answered, he says, it's very simple. He says, unfortunately, our 2 Friday nights looked completely different. He says, I made my Friday night meal. We said Kiddush, we cut the challah, we ran through the fish and ran through the meat and the dessert, and maybe said a quick Dvar Torah, and then we benched, and I ran off to my Gemara and my Rambam. And so my son didn't really have the exposure to Shabbat as he should have. My next door neighbor, on the other hand, he didn't run off to his Gemara. He and his children, the entire Friday night, hours upon hours, spent around the table, and they sang one beautiful zemer after another with harmony, with beauty, and they were so inspired by these Shabbosos, by these Friday nights, that it moved them to get closer to Hashem and to get closer to a love of Torah and mitzvahs, and that's what made them who they were and my son who he is. This is what we have to take from the parsha, that we have to escape from the world outside. The cities of refuge that we have are our homes, and our homes have to be homes of the Leviim, where we have the singing of Hashem songs, the Zmirot Shabbat, the singing of words of Torah in our home. Our lips have to be full of praise for our children and for our spouses and for our entire families. If we're able to have these tunes, these melodies permeate our homes, then our Ari Miklat will be Ari Leviim, and our Ari Leviim will be lives and areas and arenas of Kedusha, of Tara, and hopefully we will all be able to raise families al Taras HaKodesh with beauty and with dignity, with honor, and full of Kedusha. Have a wonderful Shabbos.